A cast member thought that he was my grandpa.
It's only weird if you make it weird. So what we're going to share with you doesn't just apply to relationships and isn't just applicable to, say, an age gap relationship. If you're worried about being weird, if you're constantly thinking about what everybody else is thinking, you're going to stay stuck in life and never achieve what you want to achieve, and certainly not have the opportunity to be with who you want to be with.
While all of the examples that we're going to list happened in the context of this relationship, it is not exclusive to relationships, as he was saying.
Absolutely not. You know, Lindsay and I fortunately have a successful relationship, but these are success ideas that extend beyond the relationship. It's professional, it's personal, it's success oriented, it's goal oriented, and you got to get outside your comfort zone. So yeah, Lindsay and I were uncomfortable at first when we were together, and that's okay. So when we first started hanging out together, people had questions, and we totally get that. And at first we were hanging out as friends, then we became boyfriend, girlfriend. Ultimately, of course, now we are married. And I think for me, one of the most interesting experiences was the first time we went to Disneyland during the day, and it was just the two of us. We had been there before during the day with friends, but that first time when it was just the two of us, we actually went to California Adventure. And the memory for me is getting on Mickey's Fun Wheel. What do you remember about that morning?
Yeah, we decided we were going to do Mickey's Fun Wheel. When we got on, I was on one side, he was on the other, which is how I wanted it. It started, and naturally, he wanted to come and sit across from me.
I would never.
And at that point, the intentions were different, right? You wanted a relationship. I didn't know what I wanted. I wasn't open to him sitting there. But as soon as he did come and sit with me, I didn't mind until we got to the bottom and the cast member was standing there waiting for us.
She was actually okay with it when we were at the top of the cycle of the wheel. But once our experience was over and it was time to get off and we had to interact with the cast member, she quickly rushed over to the other side. We've had that experience because, again, we're an age gap couple. This isn't conventional. It is different. But I think the key is, again, it's only weird if you make it weird. One of my favorite interactions was with a woman. We were flying into Chicago. And I was in line to get a cup of coffee, and somehow ages came up. This woman was like a year younger than me, and we were talking about what it's like to be old. And I made the comment, well, yeah, but my wife's 22. And she looked at me and she goes, why in the world did you marry a 22-year-old? And my response was, because I hadn't met you yet. So again, it's only weird if you make it weird. And have fun with it.
I found that interaction very funny.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting about that is we actually added value to her. She enjoyed our conversation, and that's been our experience. People who find out that we're married, again, might give us a little bit of a weird look. They might have questions, even legitimate concerns. After about 5 minutes, they get it. They realize that we're great together, and they like hanging out with us. They enjoy the value that we bring to each other and the value that we want to bring and hopefully are bringing to other people. So again, the takeaway here is, you know, in order to get to where you want to be in life, in relationships, you got to quit worrying about what other people are thinking. You got to quit worrying about how other people are reacting. As long as you know you're doing the right thing, as long as you believe in what you're doing, people are going to line up and fall in behind you as long as you're not constantly on the defensive and constantly having to explain yourself.
It's very nice not having that awkward feeling now when I'm introducing him to someone or he's introducing me to someone, because at the end of the day, they don't really care. You're going to say, this is my husband, and they're going to forget about that conversation in like 5 minutes. So whereas it felt very embarrassing at first, and it never should have been.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good reminder that, you know, we get wrapped up over what people are thinking. We cared way too much about other people's thoughts, other people's opinions. But again, 5 minutes after meeting them, they've moved on. Because we all know we really mostly care about ourselves. And the idea that they're going to be obsessed about Jeff and Lindsay is complete and total nonsense.
As you might have remembered in one of the previous videos, we mentioned that a cast member thought that he was my grandpa. And whereas that interaction probably would have embarrassed both of us last year, 2 years ago, we just think it's funny now because while he doesn't look like my grandpa, he does look like my dad, and that's only natural to assume. But yeah, it doesn't really affect us. I think the big thing for us now is when people ask us immediately, is that your dad or is that your daughter? Instead of feeling bad myself, I feel bad that they're probably going to be embarrassed when I say, no, that's my husband.
Yeah, and we try to put those folks at ease because the assumption is natural. They're not doing anything wrong by saying that. We get it all the time, and that's okay. So again, be who you are, and do what you want to do within reason, of course. Make sure you're staying true to yourself, and at the end of the day, taking care of each other. And I think that's a really important point. I knew that this was awkward for Lindsay, especially in terms of her family. I think she knew that I was vulnerable and there were concerns around my professional circles. And so we had a lot of conversations around that. And we both knew that each of us had the other person's best interest at heart.
Yeah, and I think reminding myself that if I go into an introduction being weird and not actually being straightforward about who he is to save myself from embarrassment, that's going to make him feel bad. So what's worse? I think making my partner feel bad is not the good option.
A lot of times the way people respond to us is really a reflection and mirror of what's going on inside of us. It's not really about them. It's what we're conveying. It's what we're projecting. So again, it's only weird if you make it weird. I was confident about Lindsay. I was confident about our relationship. I certainly knew we weren't doing anything wrong. And at the end of the day, that's what won everybody over.
And if they do care, who cares?
Yeah.
Don't care.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the lessons that, we really talked about quite a bit. And that is, you're going to meet strangers. You're going to have interactions with cast members that, let's be honest, we don't know. And why in the world are we going to make life-changing, life-altering decisions based on a weird look or a strange comment from somebody that we're never going to see ever again in our life?
So 2 years ago, we were with our very good friend Amy, and we were in line for Radiator Springs Racers when the family behind us mentioned that I was there with my mom and dad. And instead of being offended and upset about that, we just joked that we were going to turn around and kiss right in front of them.
That's right. Yeah, and that happens. I have the opportunity to do a lot of things with Lindsay's mom, and so naturally, when I'm with MJY and Lindsay's there, of course, they just assume that her mom and I are mom and dad and Lindsay's the daughter. And the best thing you can do when you're in sort of an awkward situation like that is to lighten it up. Don't get offended. Have fun with it. Only weird if you make it weird.